I was 17 or 18 years old when I first met my friend's mom. I didn't notice any sexual attraction to her, maybe because I was a virgin, but over time, I realized that there was an attraction. One day I returned home from a military training camp. After about 3 days, I decided to visit my buddy, and when I came to his house, I began to feel something special inside me when I was next to his mother. Anyway, my friend was still living with his mom, and we decided to organize a picnic. Everything went quite normally, and at the end of the picnic, she asked, I need to help her carry the chairs to the basement. We took the chairs with her to the basement, and I do not know how to explain it. In short, we started touching each other. I don't want to be too explicit, but it was some super crazy shit. There was a washing machine and dryer in the basement, which we relied on. Plus, there was a sports bench for the barbell, which we safely moved to after, well, we finished all the action on the basement steps. This case is definitely in the top 5 of my most frostbitten experiences in my life. For the next 3+ years, I felt very, very guilty. I just couldn't look my friend in the eye and hang out with him, knowing that I had f***ed his mom. And in the end, I told him everything. My story was as accurate and tactful as it was possible to be. We were sitting in his car about a month after I got back from the Marines. Smoked. When he heard my story, he looked at me like the piece of shit I already felt like. We got into a little fight right in the car. Fast forward to the present day. We still talk to him sometimes, but I know that he never really forgave me. I don't blame him for that. I still feel like a fucking asshole, and if I could take it all back, I would never do it. Personally, I think friendship is the most important thing.
Why did you tell him about this? Obviously, he didn't want to know. What kind of guy would want to know anything about his mother's sex life?
Maybe it was selfish of me, but I couldn't stay burdened with guilt. I felt like shit. My principle was that if you screwed up in something, then you have to admit it. I wish none of this had happened. I've already told this story here, but okay, I'll tell it again. It was my ex's mother, and the whole situation happened 20 years ago. How old I am? I was 22 at the time, and she was 43. She was always cool and hot. We had a New Year's Eve party that year. It was a great party, we all had a great time and all that. At the end of the party, I went into the bedroom to pick up my coat. All the clothes of the party guests were hanging there, and noticed that my ex's mother was lying on the bed. I decided to make a joke and said something like, cool, I came here to get into bed, and you're already in it. I will never forget what happened next. She opened the blanket and said, you can lie down next to me if you want. I don't think it's worth saying that I did. Later that night, I went down to the kitchen to get some water. Her daughter, my ex, was in the kitchen, and it turns out heard us tumbling with her mother. She looked at me and said she couldn't even look in my direction anymore. So I said, then don't look, and went back to the bedroom. Of course, this is a shitty act on my part, but I was young and stupid. Then we met with her mom a little more. It's an awesome topic. 10 out of 10. I would love to repeat it.
Hold on. Was she already your ex at the time of those events?
Yes, she was already my ex for 4 years before all this happened.
Oh, I get it. I imagined a completely different situation.
One day after school, I went to visit my buddy. I have to admit that it was just a reason to see his mom. I was literally obsessed with her. Unfortunately, she was not at home. I asked a friend, has she returned from her business trip, or is this little minx avoiding me? I remember one day I was mowing the lawn in her yard, and she came out wrapped only in a towel. I could tell from the look in her eyes that she liked me right away. Damn, and how she said, I think you missed it over there. Honestly, I almost came in my shorts. My friend's father recently left them, and I thought I could fill her void. As it turned out, my friend's mom was also crazy about me. During one of the overnight stays at my friend's house, we bumped into each other. She was arrested the next day. Most likely my friend called the police. Later it turned out my friend was in love with me, and well, also that it is illegal for a 40-year-old woman to with a 14-year-old guy.
Is this whole story a reference to the song Stacy's Mom?
It wasn't my friend's mom, but his aunt. I've known her for 10 years, but we hardly ever talked. She had such a purely American life. Husband, 3 sons. They liked hiking, archery, and the Boy Scout movement. We hung out with family and friends all the time. Her husband cheated on her with the mothers of his sons' friends. She wasn't aware of it. One day she found out about it, but decided not to say anything because she wanted to save her family. She kept it to herself for 4 years, and finally, when she turned 40, 20 years married, she decided to divorce with my husband. A very messy divorce. Her ex brainwashed their children that she decided to break up the family and therefore filed for divorce. He presented everything in such a way that, in the end, the children distanced themselves from her. For most of my teenage years, I often visited my friend, her nephew, at home. We lived on the same street and often met to smoke weed or just hang out together. One summer I spent almost entirely at my friend's house. I was about 23 years old, and his aunt was 42, when one day we were able to talk while sitting at the table. She didn't smoke. She just visited her family, as at that time it was all she had left. After a couple of weeks, we began to have conversations with her more and more often, sometimes at their house, then at their pool. When there were a lot of people around us, the conversations were quite short, but we communicated with glances and light, casual touches. She was in amazing shape, cute blonde, strong, determined. It was obvious that she had been through a lot. We started texting because we once exchanged numbers in order to throw a Halloween party for her family. In the end, our neutral correspondence turned into a flirtation. We started hugging each other when we said goodbye, and, she hugged me a little longer and stronger than ordinary friends do. One evening, I was sitting at my friend's house and looking after him. My friends left. I had nothing to do, and I decided to call her to look at the dogs on the strange lizard of my friends. She accepted the invitation, and I think you can understand how much I was scared out of my excitement. She came. We ordered Italian food. She didn't want the food delivery guy to see her, and that's when I realized she had dirty intentions in her head. We found ourselves in front of a TV, her head pressed against my chest, and my palm pressed against her ass. After about 30 seconds, we started kissing, and at the same time, I started pulling off her pants. While the pants were being pulled down, she said that she had not done this for 5 years, and was very worried. It was the hottest of my life. I remember it clearly. She asked me to come inside her to feel the warmth. She was my best partner. Then during the year we met 5 more times. I went to her house. She cooked dinner for me. We drank wine and had the most passionate of my life. Eventually I found someone else, and she found someone else, but we stayed in touch. Then we met again. Both she and I separated from our new second halves. I still see her a couple of times a year when I visit my friend for family kebabs. Everything is fine. We still communicate with looks and touches. Still hugging too long and tight. No one suspects anything.
How strange was the lizard?
When I was in high school, I worked in a crappy restaurant. I cut vegetables, washed dishes, and was generally supportive. There was a waitress working in this restaurant who started throwing me unambiguous hints. In general, I realized that this woman who was much older than me, she was well over 30, decided to really hit on me. And one evening when we were closing the restaurant, she bluntly declares, "Now I'm going to go to my house, strip naked, smoke, and I want you to come with me." Of course I went. She liked it so much that she continued to invite me to her place. This lasted for more than 3 months. Those women who came to me after her should be grateful to her for what she taught me. As a result, she quit the restaurant and we stopped seeing her. Meanwhile, a guy I used to know started hanging out with us at school. Once we drove a car with this guy and smoked. Suddenly he says, "Bro, let's stop by my place, get some food. If anything, my mom is cool, don't worry." Just as we started to drive up to the house, suddenly, "Damn, this is Sarah's house," runs through my head. We went in. I see that the furniture is the same. Damn, Sarah is his mom. I'm on the lookout and I just hope his mother doesn't wake up. She woke up, came down, and the first thing she said when she looked at me was, "What the hell are you doing here?" It was super awkward.
How did you handle this situation? Unless, of course, it's a secret.
Threesome with mom and her son. This was the only way to resolve this situation.
Not really on the topic, but I think it will fit here. Anyway, my mom was dating my friend. We were in the same year at college, and the whole thing started at that time. He was a student from Pakistan, and I was a student volunteer who was supposed to help him get used to everything here. We became really good friends. He began to come to my house often to study together or just hang out. That's how he met my mom and got close to her. He liked her from the very beginning. Maybe he had already started hitting on her initially, but I didn't know that. I started noticing this a few months later, but it still seemed like he was just being friendly towards her and nothing more. At least that's what I thought. When the second semester came, I began to suspect that, after all, my Pakistani friend was trying to hit on my mom. However, I didn't think about it for too long, since my mother was married, and I couldn't even imagine that there was even the slightest chance that she would fall in love with my friend. Anyway, I gave up on it, but they had already started dating, not openly, at the end of the first semester. Eventually, Dad began to suspect something, and he and Mom started having problems. Mom tried to keep it a secret for a while, but eventually she told me everything. They divorced last December. After this divorce, Mom and Sam continued their meetings in the open. Obviously, this is not my real account. Does a friend's dad count? I found him on Grindr and greeted him. Dad looked much better in Grindr than in the family photos. We started meeting regularly, several times a month. My friend doesn't know anything about this, and I probably won't tell him anything. A friend knows that his dad is gay, but I don't think he knows that Dad is in a relationship. I don't think I'm going to explain in detail how good my buddy's dad is in bed.